Have you ever wondered what happens when the justice system gets it horribly, catastrophically wrong? Imagine this. A man, totally innocent, sitting in a cold courtroom, hearing a judge sentence him to death. Final. No second chances, no, let me explain. Just a cold verdict. While his family screams, sobs, and begs for mercy. Sounds like something out of a Netflix true crime documentary, right? Except, this wasn't fiction. What unfolded next left even the most skeptical people in that room speechless. Within seconds, yes, seconds, a twist no one saw coming ripped through the courtroom like a lightning strike. Witnesses no one expected, hidden details buried for months, a desperate family refusing to give up, and undeniable evidence surfacing at the last possible moment. This wasn't just a legal case, it was a historic case, a once-in-a-generation courtroom shock. But here's the uncomfortable truth most people ignore. How many innocent defendants never get this kind of miracle? How many lives are destroyed by rushed judgments, cover-ups, and procedures that value speed over truth? This story will shake you, wake you, and make you question everything you think you know about justice, so get ready to dive deep into one of the most jaw-dropping, heart-stopping courtroom moments in history, the kind of story that sticks with you and leaves you wondering how close are we, all of us, to becoming the next innocent defendant. The man sitting in the defendant's chair didn't look like a killer. Nope, not even close. He was a simple, hard-working guy, a mechanic who spent his days fixing old engines and helping neighbors with their busted cars. Yet here he was, labeled the condemned man by a society hungry for someone to blame. As the courtroom buzzed with whispers, you could almost smell the fear radiating off him. His eyes darted from face to face, silently begging for someone, anyone, to see the truth. Then came the moment that still makes legal historians cringe. The judge, stone-faced and colder than December rain, cleared his throat. Without a flicker of emotion, he announced the death sentence. The words hit like a hammer in the gut. People gasped. Even the courtroom ceiling seemed to press down with the weight of injustice. The gavel slammed, but the echo wasn't of law, it was of finality. Suddenly the man erupted. Standing, yelling, tears streaming down his face. This wasn't a rehearsed outburst or some last-minute courtroom drama performance. It was pure, raw terror. His voice cracked as he screamed for justice. His hands shook so badly he couldn't even wipe his tears away. This wasn't just a trial gone wrong. This was a human soul on the verge of being extinguished. And just when the courtroom seemed ready to move on, something shifted. People started whispering louder. The victim's mother clutched her heart. A reporter dropped his pen. Even the skeptical judge glanced sideways. Sensing the growing tension, there was something in the air, something unfinished, and it was about to explode into the next chapter of this historic case. In that packed courtroom, all eyes turned to the defendant's family. His wife clung to their teenage son, both shaking uncontrollably. The boy's cries pierced the thick air like broken glass scraping metal. Nearby, the defendant's sister sobbed into her hands, her shoulders heaving as if each breath hurt. This wasn't just sadness. It was the kind of gut-wrenching grief that makes strangers tear up just from witnessing it. But the most heart-stopping moment came from his mother, fragile and trembling. She collapsed onto the courtroom floor with a cry that silenced the room. It wasn't just crying, it was wailing, the sound of a mother watching her child being dragged toward death. People in the courtroom lowered their heads. Even a seasoned prosecutor known for his cold demeanor avoided her gaze. This was raw human agony on full display. Some members of the public gallery shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others reached for tissues. The courtroom tension thickened like fog rolling in. Reporters stopped typing. The judge, though visibly annoyed, shifted in his chair. There's something universally jarring about watching a family fall apart in real time. The energy in the room changed, like everyone could feel that something bigger was about to happen then. Through her tears, the mother's voice broke through, barely audible at first, then louder, gaining strength from sheer desperation. Wait, please, there's evidence. You haven't seen. Her trembling words cut through the courtroom like a knife. The judge blinked. The defense lawyer froze mid-step. Somewhere deep in the corner, an unnoticed figure stirred. And just like that, hope cracked through the darkness, leading straight into the next unexpected turn. The defense lawyer sat at his table, staring blankly at the clutter of papers and legal pads scattered before him. His career, once promising, felt like a crumbling tower. Every objection he'd made had been overruled. every argument shot down by the prosecutor's relentless push. The weight of defending an innocent defendant in a system that felt rigged was finally breaking him. His shoulders slumped, and for a moment, he wondered if giving up would hurt less than watching this train wreck unfold further. With a heavy sigh, he started packing his files, each motion document, each witness statement. Into the briefcase they went, as though burying his last hope inside it. The echoes of the crying family lingered in the air, but he barely heard them. In his mind, the courtroom was already clearing out. The words death sentence rang in his ears like a funeral bell. The skeptical judge had made up his mind. It was over, wasn't it? But just as he snapped his briefcase shut, his gaze accidentally locked onto the defendant's mother. There she was, on her knees, clutching her hands together, her eyes wide with a kind of desperation he couldn't ignore. It wasn't just sadness anymore. It was pleading, the kind of stare that said, "You're our last chance." Something inside him cracked wide open. A buried instinct, the one that made him become a defense lawyer in the first place, surged back to life. Without thinking twice, he stood up. His heart raced and adrenaline pumped through him like it hadn't in years. With a quick glance at the judge, then at the prosecutor, he slammed his briefcase back down on the table and declared loudly, "Your Honor, there's something that needs to be heard." The whole courtroom froze, eyes turning toward him, and just as the judge prepared to dismiss him with a wave, fate, timing, and destiny decided to make their next entrance. Just as the judge lifted his gavel to end the session for good, the courtroom doors burst open with a bang that made everyone jump. Heads whipped around. A figure stood there out of breath, hair disheveled, eyes wide with urgency. Nobody recognized them. This wasn't someone from the trial roster. Not the prosecutor, not the defense. Not even the skeptical judge had seen this person before. The tension shifted instantly from despair to stunned curiosity. Gasps rippled through the crowd like falling dominoes. Reporters scrambled for their notepads, spectators rose from their seats, and even the court officers took a defensive stance. The condemned man froze mid-tear, his sobs catching in his throat. This kind of entrance doesn't happen in real courtroom, except, apparently today the witness, hands shaking but voice gaining strength, shouted, "Stop, you're making a huge mistake." The judge squinted, clearly irritated but also intrigued. "Who are you?" he barked. The stranger stepped forward, catching their breath. "I was there the night it happened," they said, voice steadying with every word, "and I saw who really did it. And it wasn't him." The courtroom gasped, as if hit by a collective electric shock. The defendant's desperate family burst into renewed tears. Not of grief this time, but hope. You could feel the energy in the air twist and snap like a live wire. The prosecutor instantly shot up from his seat, already preparing an objection. The defense lawyer clung to this sudden burst of hope like a drowning man grabbing a life preserver. The judge, visibly torn between procedure and human instinct, paused. For the first time all day, he hesitated. Something big was unraveling here, and no one, not even the most cynical court regulars, could guess what was coming next. The skeptical judge wasn't having it. With a glare sharp enough to cut steel, he slammed the gavel again and growled, "This session is over." His voice echoed like a final warning shot, the kind that sends shivers down the spine of rookie lawyers and seasoned courtroom staff alike. Procedure was his Bible, and surprise witnesses weren't part of today's sermon. This was a man known for ending sessions faster than a bad first date. With narrowed eyes, the judge turned toward the new witness. "You're not on the list. Your credibility is questionable at best. Why should this court waste another second?" His tone dripped with sarcasm and legal authority. The prosecutor, already smirking, leaned back confidently, as if the interruption was about to be squashed like a bug. People in the gallery exchanged defeated glances, expecting this unexpected entrance to end as quickly as it began. But then something happened that no one expected. The defendant's mother stood up again, her voice breaking but strong enough to be heard. "Please, just listen. For 5 minutes. Please," the defense lawyer chimed in, flipping through legal books, quoting obscure procedural allowances for last-minute witnesses. Even members of the jury, who were supposed to stay silent, looked visibly uneasy. The courtroom, once on autopilot toward execution, now hung in a pause that felt like forever. Finally, with a long, reluctant sigh and a shake of his head, the judge muttered, "Fine, let's hear it." It wasn't agreement from conviction. It was agreement from pressure, from humanity, from the undeniable courtroom tension thick enough to taste, And as the witness stepped forward, clearing their throat, everyone knew. The next word spoken could change everything, forever. With the whole courtroom holding its collective breath, the witness began to speak. Every word came out slow, deliberate like a surgeon making an incision. They described the crime scene in chilling detail. The alleyway's broken light, the rusted dumpster, even the exact color of the victim's jacket. People leaned forward in their seats, unable to look away. The condemned man stopped crying, staring in disbelief as if hearing the story of his own nightmare from a stranger. But then came the real gut punch. The witness described something no one outside law enforcement knew. The attacker had a unique tattoo on his forearm, a snake wrapping around a dagger. Gasps filled the room. The judge blinked several times, visibly rattled. The prosecutor stiffened in his chair and reporters started typing furiously. These were hidden details. Facts buried deep inside sealed evidence folders. Details only the real criminal, or someone present during the crime and would know. The jury, up until now stoic and expressionless, started murmuring among themselves. Some covered their mouths. Others exchanged wide-eyed glances. Even the skeptical judge shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware that this wasn't just courtroom drama anymore. This was a historic case unraveling right before their eyes. The entire courtroom was in shock, like they had been watching the wrong movie this whole time. The defense lawyer, eyes blazing with new energy, jumped to his feet. "Your Honor, in light of this testimony, we demand an immediate suspension of the sentence and a full review of the case." His voice echoed with authority and hope. The prosecutor opened his mouth to object, but the words caught in his throat. For the first time all day, the balance of power in that courtroom tilted, and just when people thought they'd seen it all, the next bombshell was already on its way. The prosecutor wasn't about to lose control without a fight. Rising from his seat with rehearsed indignation, he pointed at the witness with dramatic flair. "Your Honor, this is nothing but hearsay. This witness isn't credible. Their story has more holes than Swiss cheese." The defense lawyer rolled his eyes. Classic prosecutor deflection tactic, but the prosecutor pressed on, questioning how this witness suddenly appeared and why they hadn't come forward sooner. With rapid-fire objections, the prosecutor threw every trick in the book, questioning the witness's mental state, accusing them of seeking attention, even hinting at conspiracy theories. "This is a last-minute stunt by the defense," he shouted, waving his hands like a magician pulling fake rabbits out of hats. The skeptical judge rubbed his temples, visibly tired of the circus but still unsure which way to lean. But just as the prosecutor prepared his next theatrical objection, fate intervened. A court officer, pale and wide-eyed, rushed in holding a USB drive. "Your Honor, we found this," he said, almost breathless within minutes. The courtroom projector flickered to life. Grainy footage from a nearby security camera filled the screen. And there, clear as day, was the real criminal, tattoo and all, committing the crime. No special effects, no room for doubt, just cold, undeniable evidence. The room erupted, gasps, shouts, people covering their mouths in disbelief. Some in the gallery stood up in pure shock. The prosecutor's face drained of color faster than water down a sink. Even the judge, frozen with his gavel midair, watched the video loop again and again. The truth had finally crashed through the courtroom walls like a freight train, but the emotional roller coaster wasn't over. Not by a long shot. As the video replayed, the condemned man, this innocent defendant, sat frozen for a second, like his brain couldn't process what was happening, then like a dam breaking. The tears came, but this time, they weren't tears of terror, they were tears of relief. The sobs shook his entire body, but there was a different sound to them now, almost like laughter mixed with disbelief. This was the sound of a man who'd stared death in the face and survived. The courtroom had watched him fall apart earlier, but this was something else entirely. After days, weeks, maybe even months of sitting in a cell, replaying his life like a bad movie about to end, he finally felt the weight lift off his chest. People underestimate what hope feels like when it returns suddenly, like breathing after almost drowning. His hands covered his face, but through the cracks of his fingers his tears poured freely. Suddenly his family rushed toward him. The guards, recognizing what was happening, didn't stop them. His wife wrapped her arms around him first, sobbing and laughing all at once. His teenage son hugged him tight, whispering, "I knew you didn't do it, Dad. I knew it." His mother, still trembling, kissed his hands again and again. repeating prayers of thanks under her breath. Even strangers in the gallery wiped their eyes, caught up in the raw, human wave sweeping through the room. But amid the wave of emotion, a heavy silence returned, because one person hadn't spoken yet, the judge. All eyes turned toward the bench. The gavel rested there, untouched. The final word still hung in the air like thunderclouds refusing to rain. The courtroom wasn't done holding its breath. Not yet. For a long moment the judge sat motionless, staring at the screen still showing the undeniable evidence. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for his gavel, something few in the courtroom had ever seen from this man known for being unshakable. Clearing his throat, he began to speak, but his voice cracked on the first word. He paused, swallowed hard, then started again with forced authority. This court overturns the death sentence. The words hit like lightning. The defendant's family broke into fresh sobs, this time tears of pure, uncontrollable joy. The defense lawyer let out a breath he didn't even realize he'd been holding. Reporters dashed out of the room, eager to break the story first. Even some of the jury members clapped their hands over their mouths, barely able to contain their shock. The gavel finally slammed down, not as a death sentence, but as a symbol of reversal, a symbol of life. But of course, the judge couldn't let it end without salvaging his pride. Straightening his back, he said, "Let me remind this court, my decision was based on the evidence presented at the time. Given what we had, any reasonable judge would have ruled the same." The words felt hollow, and you could almost hear the collective eye roll from people in the gallery. Whispers of cover-up and trying to save face swirled like smoke. Still, none of it mattered to the condemned man and his family. They didn't care about courtroom politics. They cared about having him alive. As the judge finished speaking, murmurs of "historic case" started circulating through the room. People pulled out their phones, already sharing headlines like wildfire. But just when everyone thought it couldn't get crazier, footsteps thundered from the back of the courtroom, and all heads turned once again. The thunder of approaching footsteps wasn't from a late lawyer or a frantic intern. It was the police. 2 uniformed officers, faces grim, burst into the courtroom and headed straight for a man sitting quietly near the back. The real criminal, who until seconds ago had blended in with the public, stood up in a panic, knocking over a chair. But there was nowhere to run before anyone could process what was happening. He was in handcuffs, surrounded. Gasps exploded across the courtroom like popcorn in a hot pan. Spectators pointed. Some shouted. Others grabbed their phones, recording the scene as it unfolded. The prosecutor sank back in his chair, his face drained of color. The skeptical judge stared at the arrest, mouth slightly open, as though he couldn't believe the real criminal had been sitting under his nose this entire time. Reporters climbed onto benches for a better view. It was courtroom shock on a level people only see in movies. Meanwhile, the defense lawyer stood frozen for a second, then dropped his pen, rubbed his face, and laughed. Not a laugh of humor, but of sheer, exhausted disbelief. The family embraced again, crying harder than ever, but now it was tears of pure, sweet justice. The defendant, still wiping away tears, locked eyes with the officers as they dragged the real criminal out. Finally, the nightmare was over. Within hours, the case exploded across news stations and social media feeds. Hashtags about the historic case trended worldwide. Legal analysts called it one of the most shocking courtroom turnarounds in decades. Documentaries were pitched. Headlines screamed, "Death sentence overturned after last-second revelation." And as the courtroom slowly emptied, one undeniable truth remained. Justice, though delayed, had finally arrived. But the lessons, they were just beginning, so after witnessing every tear, every scream, every desperate plea, what's going through your mind right now? Are you still confident in the justice system you once trusted blindly? Or are you, like many others, realizing just how fragile the line is between freedom and a death sentence? How many times has an innocent defendant been silenced just because no one was brave enough to speak up? Think about it. What would have happened if that new witness hadn't burst through the courtroom doors? If the defense lawyer had given up? If the judge had ended the session 5 seconds earlier? The truth comes out, sure, but sometimes only after it's almost too late. Now I want to hear from you. Do you believe mistakes like this happen more often than we think? Should the system change? How would you react if this was someone you loved? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story shook you even half as much as it shook that courtroom, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another real-life story that could open your eyes, or even change your life.